purpose of Tigers Against Trafficking is to address human trafficking on a local and global level, specifically via students on campus at LSU. And the way it got started was I graduated from LSU undergrad in 2007, and I took a year off before returning in 2008 for law school. And I was working in Sydney, Australia, having a blast, kind of like a long vacation. And while I was there, that's where I first encountered the issue of human trafficking at like an awareness event in downtown Sydney one night. And through that, my friend and I went on a around the world research trip where we basically visited different organizations, found out what they were doing to address trafficking, whether it was from a victim assistance aspect or a law enforcement aspect or legislation aspect, and put together kind of a best practices model in terms of how to address human trafficking in Europe, specifically in Greece, because I was working for a nonprofit at the time who had very close ties to different organizations in Greece and really wanted to help launch something there. And for me, that moment, that really, that first impacting moment in terms of human trafficking was when I met my first human trafficking victim. We were in Cambodia, and the group that was there and kind of giving us a tour about the issue and the problem on a local level brought us to a housing project that was specifically for girls and boys who were rescued out of brothels, and this house was for kids ages 9 to 13. And we met this little girl. Her name was Zoe, and she was 11 years old. She was carrying this little boy who I assumed was her little brother or something like that, or a cousin, but they told us that was her baby. When they found her, she was 7 months pregnant. She had been gang raped and then dropped off at a brothel, which over the next couple of months, her stomach began to grow. She didn't even know it was inside of her, and that's whenever the law enforcement did a raid on that brothel, and they rescued her. And it wasn't like a super emotional moment, but it was really kind of like, it was very eye-opening. I kind of stood there dumbfounded, like this is, not only does this happen, we read about it in a textbook or a journal or something, but I'm staring it straight in the face. And that little girl's face will stay with me always. And it's really the thing that when I came back in 2008, fall 2008 for law school, I remember my plane ride home from Australia and just kind of brainstorming, thinking about how I could connect the student body, LSU specifically, with the issue. Thinking of a stadium, 90, 100,000 people, and how passionate we get about a football game, which, don't get me wrong, I love LSU sports, but thinking, there's got to be a way, if we can get that excited about a sport, that we can rally the community and the student body around the issue of human trafficking. And so I told two of my very best friends when I got back, both of whom were still in undergrad at the time, Jeremy Bate and Sarah Kaiser, and together we decided to host a one-time event to raise awareness about human trafficking. It was a 5K run. It was called, the name of the event was going to be Tigers Against Trafficking. We didn't intend on starting a student organization, and then the funds and the proceeds were going to go towards anti-trafficking, specifically in Europe. And through that, we had so much response within the community, the local community, Baton Rouge, and the student body. We realized that we could start something long-term on campus that would outlive our time there and really just create an avenue for students to get involved and address it on a local level by partnering with different initiatives that are going on here in our community, because it's a huge issue in terms of domestic trafficking, and then use our funds collectively to help address it on a global level, because we really are part of a global community. What happens overseas affects us directly. It's a very different time than it was 50, 60 years ago. And so here we are, 2012, about 4.5 years later since when we first launched it, and I'm very proud to say that there's third generation TAT members. I and my co-founders are a part of it on kind of like an advising and a consulting way, but really the nitty-gritty work is done by the students who are on campus, and so that's how Tigers Against Trafficking got started. It's been so inspiring to see just, one very specific difference that I find TAT has made on campus and in the community, and other organizations like Trafficking Hope and A21, who is the international trafficking organization that we partner with, is just, awareness is not the be-all end-all, but it is the first step in addressing the problem. And I remember when we first started pushing this issue on all fronts in about 2008, very few people had any awareness about the problem, or if you'd mention trafficking, especially like on campus, people would say, oh, like the traffic problem, with cars or whatever. And here we are about 4 or 5 years later, there's billboards up everywhere. And I really don't, in my everyday life, I haven't encountered very many people in the last year or two who don't have some general awareness of the problem, not only as it exists on a global level, but here in Baton Rouge. And so that's very inspiring. And I think what we set out to do, initially was to raise awareness, through a one-time event, and then really our eyes were opened about the long-term effect that TAT could have on campus. And that's really my hope and my dream for TAT, is that it will far outlive our time there, that maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, if, my kids, if they go to LSU, they'll be a part of Tigers Against Trafficking. And it's really an avenue, not only first and foremost to play a part in bringing freedom to people whose lives have been wrecked and ruined by this horrible atrocity, but it's also been a place where students can find a sense of purpose and meaning in terms of a very real problem that's occurring in our state, in our community, and on our globe, that we all have a responsibility to address. And that will look differently for everyone. Some of us will be on the front lines, whether it's victim assistance or what I'm doing now in terms of policy on a legislative level. But it's a place, where it's been so inspiring. Like, I can think of, so many individuals that came through our doors with TAT and are using what, their gifts, their abilities, their talents, their education, and now a lot of them are in their careers to address this. And that's my hope and dream for TAT too, that it is a place where a lot of people find purpose, a specific purpose. Awareness is important to the extent that you can't do something about a problem until you become aware about it. But one of the emphases that we make through TAT is we partner globally, financially. So we'll have awareness events that raise finances, and we're partnering financially with the A21 campaign overseas. So 100% of what we raise from events, this doesn't go to cover our costs. Like, that's one of the kind of non-negotiables that the co-founders set out from the beginning, which is, students don't have a lot of money. So when you give to something, 100% of what you're giving is going directly to girls in trafficking. But on the other side of it is there's a lot of initiatives going on here in our community. Trafficking Hope, I encourage people to look up on the internet and get involved with, which is more community outreach involved. So it's working with street work with prostitutes and strip clubs and things like that. And there's also a home that they're in the process of building, which will be the first anti-human trafficking home in Louisiana. And there'll be a lot of volunteer opportunities, and everyone will find their niche. Some people are comfortable with actually, doing some volunteer work with girls, where other people aren't, and that's totally fine. You can stuff envelopes, of sending out invitations for the next human trafficking event. Something you can do is, via school is, do a research project specific to human trafficking that later, like a journal could publish or something like that. So, or for example, the last TAT event was Key to Free. So a lot of those students were out there raising awareness about the problem, but they were also finding a way to connect with the LSU student body, bring in some more, volunteers to get involved with the project. Another initiative, and this comes mostly out of the student side of everything, but TAT and Trafficking Hope, they partner in doing, it's called bathroom outreaches. So it's where you put up the human trafficking hotline in bathrooms, because if you think about it, one way to reach girls who are trapped in slavery is you got to find a way to connect with them in a place where they're alone, and there's not many times when they're alone, but bathrooms are usually when they're alone. And so, and this is an initiative that a lot of states are implementing, but doing some bathroom outreaches, so putting up the hotline in gas stations and motels and bus stops, places like that. So that's just a few examples of ways that you can get involved in specific things that you can do to be a solution.